Hello, this is Mark Holmes, the editorial director of Via Satellite, and we're well into December now. And we have another of our Thursday morning conversations, and I'm delighted to have with me today Tiphaine Louradour, the president of ILS. So Tiphaine, welcome to Via Satellite's Thursday morning conversation, and how have you been?
Hi, Mark. How are you? I'm sorry the audio, I think, was just cutting out a little bit.
No problems. How have you been, Tiphaine?
Oh, doing well. It's I think this year has been an adjustment for many of us, but we're coming to the end of the year, and hopefully there will be a a vaccine very soon available for all of us, and we can get back to whatever new normal is going to be going forward.
Now, let's go back to March, because you became the president, I believe, in ILS in March, and it's a challenging time anyway to become, leading a company, a new company for the first time. But how has it been to sort of, I guess it's been a bit of like a baptism of fire and a completely different challenge than probably what you envisioned at the start of the year?
Yes, that is that would be the short answer. I started this new position with ILS as its president in March, actually the week of Satellite, when pretty much the virus was making its way to the U.S. And I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of the week, things were still going on as expected, and then by the Wednesday, I think, or Thursday, there was an announcement made. Everybody had to shut down and go home if they could. So it was that's the week I started. I had the opportunity to meet with a few customers, and then I met with my new team for a couple of hours, and that was it. After that, everything was remote. I certainly didn't expect to start that way, but made do with it. And I think one of the things that really helped is I go by a few sets of principles, and I think they were even more so important in this environment. Not knowing really how things were going to evolve. Certainly back in March, I did not think that in December we'd still be in this situation, and still somewhat of a lockdown for a lot of places. But those principles are, to listen actively, to ask questions, show compassion, and absolutely follow through on your commitments. I had to, quickly and effectively develop those new relationships with my new team. Along with my management, I didn't have the opportunity to travel to Russia to meet with them, so that was those principles really helped me through these additional challenges on top of starting a new job.
We'll come back to that, but as you know, with these Thursday morning conversations, we like to talk about a lot of non-satellite stuff as well. And we've now been in lockdown for, well, as you said, since March, and when you took over ILS. So we've been at home a long time. So we always ask people about what they've enjoyed watching, listening to, what they've been doing in their spare time. So what have you been, any movies, dramas, any things that you particularly enjoyed watching over the last few months?
Wow, let's see. From a movie standpoint, it probably has been more series. I've been quite impressed with the quality of the series that are being put out, and they're quite diverse. Let's see, that might start a bit of a conversation with you, actually. I've been watching The Crown. I've
Okay.
already watched the latest, the latest that just came out. So I know there's a lot of talk around that, and being from France, I actually I like to say I kind of grew up with the royal family, obviously not directly, but following the evolution, and I really like Princess Diana, so it is something I've enjoyed watching. But then I also like, I don't know if you've heard of a series called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. That's yeah, quite fun, and it's quick and it's witty, and just in environments that I don't know or haven't experienced. I'm always intrigued about seeing, how those time periods are portrayed. And let's see. And then my kids have gotten me to watch, sometimes during dinner, we'll watch Beat Bobby Flay.
I don't know that. Tell me about that.
It is it's a cooking show, and it's this famous chef, and then they bring two other chefs. They have to compete against each other first, and whoever wins that gets to compete against Bobby Flay. And um, they make it look so easy, and it's fun and it's entertaining. And so sometimes in the kitchen we'll try new things, and we'll think, oh, I remember on this show this looked good or sounded, mixed well with this herb or whatever. And we always have the backup of a frozen meal in the freezer. So it's gotten us to be more creative in cooking. So that's been fun. So on the show's front, I think that kind of sums up some of the most recent ones that I've watched.
I'm going to come back to that, but I just want to stick on the kitchen theme for a moment, because I think I shared on a Thursday morning conversation, one of my proud achievements during lockdown was actually baking my first cake from scratch, which for me anyway, a big achievement. So I was sort of wondering, when you mentioned sort of the cooking show, was there sort of a dish that came out of that you did as a result of the show that you thought, wow, that was really good, and really, really enjoyed creating and making?
Oh gosh, actually, I have not. I mean, their dishes are pretty pretty involved recipe wise, and they don't really give. They're chefs, right? So they mix a little bit of this, they'll put a little bit of that. There's no measurements or and there are no. That is something they should do, is issue a recipe for whoever wins that. But they don't do that. So it's more of I remember, with those, I'll make it up, but with the sweet potatoes, he used this kind of herbs, or he added this ingredient, or he layered it with this. So that's more what we've been doing.
Interesting. I mean, going back to TV, it's ironic because you mentioned The Crown, and I've been watching a lot of French dramas this year. So I've been watching. There was one called, I don't know the French name, is one called No Second Chance, and then there was one that was Philharmonica, which was based on it was sort of a murder mystery in an orchestra in Paris, and again beautifully shot and very stylish. So while you were sort of indulging in the UK, I was doing the opposite, because I like seeing dramas in sort of other places. So I always enjoy watching a good French drama.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about, whether it's reading or shows, things that take me to different eras, or just environments that I don't know, or context that I'm not familiar with, and it kind of opens that world for you.
I definitely agree. Speaking of that, let's talk about music now, because that's another thing that we talk a lot about on these conversations. Tell us about some of your favorite artists' music you like to listen to, when you have any spare time.
Let's see. So that, I don't know that I really have a favorite. It really depends on the mood and what I'm trying, if I need to focus, or I'm not much of a morning person, so sometimes I do need that, especially if I'm traveling overseas, and your 8-hour time zone difference. I'll put some pretty upbeat music. Probably to my kids' embarrassment, I'll tell you that usually ends up being old French 80s music. That kind of gets me up and going in the morning if I need it. But I like classical music. I like opera, some, and just different, anything from older things to more of today's contemporary music. I get, one of the fun things that I hadn't done before is my middle daughter, who's 16, will share some of the artists that she likes. Most I've never heard of, and there's quite a few that I actually enjoy. So that's expanding my my music repertoire, if you will.
So tell me about one or two I guess either artists or songs that your daughter has introduced to you that you now really like?
Oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed because I don't think I remember. I'll tell you, I've listened a lot more to Frank Sinatra because obviously I knew Frank Sinatra, but that's one of the older that she really enjoys. Um, I don't know. I'd have to ask her. She just puts it on and I listen.
I'll tell you a story with my daughter. It's over a year ago, and we were going out in Cambridge, and she said, oh Dad, and we went to this like CD store, and they still have them, and she said, oh, I think you'll really like this artist, and I was like going, oh, who's that? And she went, oh, Billie Eilish. And I said, oh, I've never heard of her. And she said, oh, I think you might like it actually. And so I somewhat shamefully at that point had not heard of Billie Eilish, and my daughter then we bought this CD, and I ended up sort of liking some of her songs. So it was an example, even though I think I'm fairly up to date with music, your kids are obviously listening to things that get to hear things quicker than you do, and that was an example of being introduced to an artist I actually hadn't heard of at the time.
All right, and I did listen. When you had mentioned to me previously about with Cœur de Pirates, I did listen to her. I quite enjoy her. Her voice is unique. I very much enjoyed it. So that was a new one that I added recently.
It's always good to introduce. I've introduced Cœur de Pirates to a few people, and there was a few years ago where I was listening to French music, and when it's done really well, like any form of music, I suppose it's absolutely. So even though I'm not understanding the words or a lot of the words sometime, I think the actual music is fantastic, and again it sort of takes you, it has that sort of Paris chanson vibe, which I think is really, which I think is really cool and really enjoy listening to. So what when you're not running a satellite company, which is a fairly big deal, as we know, what other things do you like to do in your spare time?
So launch service company, right? Let's see. So I do work a lot, and usually my spare time is occupied with doing things with family. One of the things we've done a lot more, and I've watched some of the previous Thursday morning conversations, which I very much enjoy watching. We play quite a few card games, and two in particular. So one of them is typically French, and the reason I mentioned a previous Thursday morning conversation is because Tiphaine did mention that as well, that his family plays that. So do we, which is called Tarot. It's just a typical French game, and so my youngest started playing that when he was probably 4 years old. So we got him started young. And he's always been good with card games. So that was we get pretty competitive. And then and my kids actually introduced me to Texas Hold'em poker.
Okay.
So, and I feel I'm much slower at learning new card games than they are, but I'm getting there. So that's been fun. We just, in general, we spend more time talking. They're pretty independent. And like I said, I do spend a lot of time working, but we just kind of being there in the same place, right, in the house. You have more opportunities for interactions. And obviously, I normally travel a lot. So just by the fact of being home does give me that opportunity, and I try to take more advantage of that, because I'm sure I will miss it once we're back to more of a regular routine. So trying to really make the best of the situation, right? There are definitely some downsides, but there's also a lot of upsides, I think, that's coming out of going through this pandemic.
I'm sort of wondering whether we should arrange a satellite tarot card game between you and Stefan. Maybe I can learn the rules as well, and because again, that's the sort of a piece of information I don't think we ever would have learned if we hadn't have gone into lockdown. So I'll have to I have to see if I can learn about the game on YouTube or something, and then
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it would be very competitive. So I actually did think about it. I'm like, well, if we're all, I don't know, maybe others aren't playing cards, but if we all are, maybe there's something there.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about sort of the work stuff now. I mean, we touched upon it at the start of the conversation, and obviously, you came in at a challenging time globally for every company. Let's talk about the launch sector specifically and where ILS is now. I mean, what do you see as, now that we've sort of got through this year and maybe we get to a more normal 21, how are things looking from a business perspective for ILS as we go into 21?
Well, it's this year was busy. Some of the we took some of the, wouldn't call it necessarily downtime, but slower time to, as everyone kind of figured out how to move forward in operating in this environment. Obviously, that part we were lucky that we'd always been able to operate virtually in any time zone given our market and where our customers are all over the world. But we've certainly I'd say much more dependent on technology today. And case in point, right, video conferencing is the next best thing to being able to meet in person. So I'm grateful. I know we're going to talk about ILS in 2021, but I'm grateful for that too on a personal level, because my whole family is in France, and being able to not only talk to them easily, because I can pick up the phone and the call actually goes through, versus 30 years ago it didn't always happen, and it was much more expensive. But also being able to do, video chats and actually seeing my dad, for example, who's, older, and checking in on him. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that we're in a business where I feel we, being able to launch our customer satellites, we enable those communications where at least we're a part of that. So that makes me feel very good. Plans we have for next year and things that we've actually started this year. There's quite a few. So one of them is, we were really focused prior on sales of the Proton launch vehicle. We've broadened that. We've broadened our relationships with the Russian space industry, and I'm happy to say we're working with Khrunichev and GK Launch Services and Glaf Cosmos. So, we're now able to market and sell, obviously not only the upcoming Angara as well, but the Soyuz launch vehicle, and both in support on commercial satellites launches, but also for human space flight. And that's working, with Glass Cosmos, and it's an exciting, kind of fun, selling private seats to the ISS. This would include, spending 7 to 10 days on the space station, participating in experiments. I mean, we have a lot of modularity to that offering. And again, this is in supporting working with Glass Cosmos, who has 35 plus years experience in these international cooperation missions, including the human spaceflight element, and obviously Soyuz with the 50 plus years of flying human space missions, of over 160 missions. I mean, I think is a great add to our line of business and the services that we can help enable. So those are the from a marketing and sales standpoint, some of our priorities for the upcoming year. Obviously, we need to focus and execute on the commitments we have today, and we need to remain, laser. And that is an ongoing discussion and element every week on remaining laser focused on the reliability. Right, we've achieved the 5-year, 20 consecutive successful missions for Proton flights. That needs to stay and keep going. And this was a result of the quality and reliability program that was developed and implemented right over a 3-year period. And I think we can do a better job at sharing that message, sharing that information, not only with our customers, but the insurance community. So lots of things, and obviously, hopefully we'll have some announcements next year. That's that's our job. But we'll see.
You talked about reliability there, and I've covered ILS for many years, the highs and lows. Do you believe that sort of customer perception, or that reliability perception, I should say? Do you feel like you've really turned the corner there now?
I think we're there, but there's definitely something that we need to continue. We can do better, and we are at sharing the more in-depth information behind how we achieved, getting back to that reliability. There's a lot of information there, and we have started sharing more of that, both with our customers and our insurers. I think the insurance rates are an industry-wide concern. I do expect them to come down for Proton, and we're going to be working with the insurers too on the Soyuz insurance. So looking at both those launch vehicles, not just the Proton alone.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to ask you is what was your perception coming into ILS? I mean, you took the job this year, and what sort of excited you about taking this position? And sort of if we can just not talk about it pandemic related, but actually coming into ILS as a launch service provider, and why you thought it was a really great challenge for you to take this one on.
Wow. So there's a few things, multiple really, but I'll highlight a few. What excited me, one was the full sole focus on the commercial market. The second was really so linked to that, right, by default, is the international nature. To me, it's exciting to be working, a company that's US based. Owners are Russia. I mean, there's a lot more broader involvement than the US, and so it's that perspective that I really enjoy. It fits naturally with my background, and I think just my preference. I very much enjoy that. Obviously having the opportunity to lead a company, ILS has had 25 plus years. I enabled a lot of the satellite operators' businesses, where it was a critical part of that earlier on. They had some challenges a few years ago. I believe that was course corrected, particularly with this reliability and quality improvement plan and program that was put in place. And it's ongoing, right? Those quality initiatives are ongoing. It's not something that started, stopped, and we're done. It's embedded now as part of their everyday processes. So the kind of the timing of all that coming together and being offered that opportunity to lead it forward into its next chapter was very exciting for me.
And let's talk about the geo market, because I saw you on a panel at World Satellite Business Week. I think the first virtual launch panel where we had all of the big launch providers there, and there seemed to be, when talking about the geo market in 21, 22, some one or two not major differences of opinion, but there were certainly some differences of opinion there. I'm just sort of curious how you sort of see the potential market, whether those numbers will decline, go up, stabilize, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think so. Overall, this year ends up being compared to the recent years, is ending up being a good year, I would say, and probably mostly because of the was it 11 or so satellite orders for C-band, right? I think the geo market is going to stabilize, improve maybe a little bit. I don't think we'll be seeing the 15, 18, 20 plus orders a year for just geo satellites. However, I do see an increase in demand overall between, we're having these small geos that are going to be coming online, and just a lot more variety and diversity on not only the satellite types, but also the orbit requirements. So there's a lot of focus still on GEO and LEO, but I think we're going to see more in MEO and some of the other overall, non-geo type orbits.
So is it actually a good time to be, at a launch service provider? Because we talk about, this is the era of hundreds, maybe thousands of satellites over the next decade, who knows, and obviously they need to find a way to get into orbit. So I mean, are you expecting regardless of the geo numbers, it's going to be an incredibly busy time for you and ILS?
I think there's a potential there, and our job is to make sure that we have the launch service offerings that can meet those requirements, and again, the diversity of these requirements. And I believe that with the increased launch service offerings that we have between Proton, Soyuz, eventually Angara, we're going to be able to serve that market well with a competitive launch service offering, and also the flexibility that's required, not only in meeting the mission requirements, but in the schedule flexibility that might be needed. But anytime, it's always good if business cases close, right? And it means more business for everyone, and it's better for the space and the space industry. It's exciting to see. I think the space industry has become this hot commodity, right? The interest, the funds that are coming in the industry is very exciting.
It definitely is. I'm going to just ask one final music question, because I tend to end on a fun question rather than a satellite question. And so you were speaking about upbeat tunes, or tunes that your daughter had introduced you to, and things like that. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, can you give us a tune that's a real upbeat, tune, happy tune that you really enjoy listening to?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I'm almost a little bit embarrassed. I like Cyndi Lauper.
Okay.
Is a good one. It's funny, I just draw blanks too when I'm asked for names. But
Like Time After Time, Girls Want to Have Fun, those types of tunes.
Yeah. So something that it has to have a good rhythm, right, to wake you up, kind of gets your heartbeat going. So, but Cyndi Lauper is what comes to mind. The French music of the 80s, some of the typical.
Let's educate the satellite industry about French pop music in the 80s. Tell me, and even myself, because I listen to probably more modern French music. So give me a French pop song from the 80s to listen to on Spotify a bit later.
Okay, I'll give you some name, like the group Tiphaine is one of them. How about I'll end on a more of a kind of a fun story. I was traveling, this is a few years back, with some colleagues from the US. We were in France, and I happened to be driving. I kind of knew the roads better. And I found this, kind of old music like 80s, right? And I said, oh yeah, this is today's French music, because of course driver gets to select the music. And this is totally what we play in France today, right? And I got that going for the whole trip. So I got to listen to the oldies being 80s, 90s, right? And then at the end I finally fessed up and said, oh no, this is not today's French music. I have a playlist. I'm terrible with artist names. I'm sorry, but yeah.
You gave us one. That was good. Tiphaine, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. I just want to, on behalf of Via Satellite, wish you, all your colleagues at ILS, as well as your family, obviously happy holidays and a safe period over the next few months as hopefully we get ready for the vaccines and returning to a new normal. I think it's great taking on that challenge at ILS. I really do wish you all the best, because I've been covering the launch market for many years, and it's always a really exciting, dynamic market to cover. And there's some really good competition there, as we know. But I think ILS has been a name that's been in this sector for many years, and I think it'd be a really good news story to see a successful ILS launching, plenty of satellites. So I wish you all the best over the next year. It's been great talking to you today, and look forward to hopefully seeing you next year.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for inviting me to join the Thursday morning conversation. Very much appreciated. So the format is great. This is a great idea that you had, and I hope it continues post-COVID, because it's a really good format.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much.